Hi there, everybody. It's Mr. Cozy. We're going to start our story. Because I am one of the most common insects on the planet, I'm sure you know that I'm an ant. But did you realize how much my cousins and I look like a wasp? Take a very close look. See how slender our waists are, or thin? Mine is unusually flexible, making it easy to bend and twist. Count my body parts. You'll see that I have 3, just like all other insects. My head with its long antennae, my thorax, and my abdomen. Here's something you might not know. I have 2 stomachs. Both are located in my abdomen, but one is for my digestion, and the other is called the crop. It's just a storage bin where I keep food for other ants. The fact that I store food for other ants should tell you something about me. Ants are social insects. I want you guys to think and see if you can remember what it means to be a social insect. If you didn't happen to catch the last lesson, what do you think it means to be a social insect? Take a guess. We raise and care for our young in colonies. There are many different kinds of ants with many different kinds of ways of life. Carpenter ants build their nests in wood. Leafcutter ants grow fungus on leaves they cut in vast, large underground gardens. The aggressive weaver ants live in leaves they bind together in trees. The huge colony of army ants travel in groups, eating everything in sight. Trapjaw ants can jump distances of more than 12 inches. Harvester ants build huge nest mounds where they store seeds. Beware of the red fire ants. They sting. I am a black garden ant, the type that you may not see very often, or maybe you do. So that is the kind of ant that I'm going to tell you about today. Like many other ants, we live in underground tunnels or passageways. Bees have honeycombs, paper wasps have nests, and we have tunnels, miles and miles of tunnels, full of little chambers or rooms, hundreds of very dark chambers. A colony may have as few as 12 ants or as many as 1 million or more. The center of an ant colony is the colony's life. An ant colony begins with the queen. A young queen is born in one colony but leaves that colony to start her own. Her wings carry her into the air to find a mate. Once she finds a mate, she sheds her wings and immediately finds a nesting place underground. There, she builds a chamber and seals herself inside to lay her eggs. When ant larvae hatch, the queen cares for the first brood herself, feeding them with her own saliva as they change from worm-like larvae into pupa and finally adults. Does anybody remember what that process is called when an ant or an insect goes from larva to a pupa to adult? The queen does not leave the nest this whole time, getting nutrition from her now useless wing muscles in order to survive. Ants undergo a complete metamorphosis. Remember what that means. A complete metamorphosis is when an animal looks completely different from one stage to another in their development. Most of the eggs develop into small female worker ants that begin their lifetime of hard work by gathering food for the queen, making sure she is well fed. The queen will never leave the nest again, living there for 10 to 20 years, perhaps even longer. As the mother of the colony, she has her own special chamber. Her only job from this point on is to lay eggs. Sound familiar? Maybe to the wasps? Oops. All right, here we go. The worker ants carry eggs from the queen's chamber into nurseries, where they keep the eggs clean and moist by licking them until they hatch. Then they carry the larvae into separate chambers to feed them. Black ants eat other insects, any crumbs that we can find, and honeydew of aphids. We chew the food up well and put it in a pouch in our mouths where the liquid is squeezed out of it. Sorry about the camera work here, guys. We spit out the solid parts and swallow the liquid. Remember, we have 2 stomachs, one being the crop for storing food, so worker ants come back to the nest with crops full of food for the young. As they grow, The larvae molt a few times, and after a few weeks, they spin cocoons. These are all pictures of little tiny cocoons. The worker ants move these newly formed pupae into much drier chambers where they rest until they are ready to gnaw their way out into the world. As social insects, ants cooperate in many ways. When these new workers emerge, some will help care for the queen and larvae, and some will build and repair the tunnels, but others will guard the nest. The guards, called soldier ants, have larger heads and jaws than other ants, and they place their bodies across the entrance to the nest to defend the colony. All ants, including soldier ants, emit chemical signals that other ants smell with their antennae. Soldier ants use these signals to warn the colony of danger. This is one way that the ant communicates or shares information. Another way ants communicate is through touch. If an ant is hungry, it taps a food gatherer lightly with its antennae to let it know that it would like to eat. Kind of like how you guys do me when you guys need anything. You'll just start tapping me. They exchange the food mouth to mouth in what looks like little kisses. When the food is shared, the ant also pass along chemical information important for the entire colony. If one of us ants gets trapped when the soil around us caves in, we produce a squeaky sound by rubbing joints together, and other ants hear the cry for help. This is a picture of the ants tapping when they're hungry. Before I leave, I want to introduce you to another social insect that some people mistakenly call white ants. Do you think these ants look like ants? Because they're not. They're termites. Termites are more closely related to cockroaches, and they do not have hard exoskeletons. They are soft-bodied and nearly blind. They would not survive as solitary insects on their own, but they are very successful social insects. There are several There are several differences between termites and other social insects you've learned about. Honeybees, paper wasps, and ants. And termites do not go through as many stages of development. They skip the pupa stage, so their metamorphosis is incomplete. The termite society is a bit different as well. Both a king and a queen ruled termite colonies. They start a colony together. The queen is the most important member of the colony, sometimes laying 6,000 or 7,000 eggs a day. She's so well protected by the countless numbers of worker termites that it's almost impossible to find her within the colony. Just in case something should happen to the royal couple, termite colonies include substitute queens and kings as well. Termite workers perform similar jobs to worker ants, but the job of guarding the colony rests with a small number of soldiers equipped with strong legs and powerful jaws. Unlike honeybees, paper wasps, and ants, where all the workers are female, in termite colonies, both male and female workers are important members of the society. Termites' favorite food is wood. They can be very destructive if they choose to eat through walls of a house. Depending on where they live, some termite species eat insects, waste materials, and fungus. They build their temperature-controlled nests underground, inside fallen trees, in timber, and in tree branches. Does this nest look a bit like a wasp nest? I think so. It's made up of chewed wood and saliva like the wasp nest, but with added mud and soil. Some termites build mounds above the ground to house their colonies. These towering mud structures are hard as rock, and some are as tall as a two-story house. Lots of teamwork goes into building these mounds, with incredible air conditioning systems to keep the chambers cool in very hot climates. Next, you'll hear from an insect that glows in the dark. Until then, think about what that insect might be. This is Mr. Cozy. If you have any questions, please contact me, Ms. Benson, or Ms. Madison on Class Dojo, text, or email. Thank you. Bye-bye.